For anyone who was interested in Chinese historical objects, they were absolutely gobsmacked to see this object appearing for sale, not even knowing that such a thing existed. And again, for anyone who is a collector of Chinese paintings, this is something that they've seen, impressed. Now, this is the object right in front of them that connects all these great works of art.
Sotheby's is the temporary custodian of some of the world's most rare, remarkable, and coveted art and objects. In each episode, we'll be exploring the significance and journey of an extraordinary work told by those who know it best. This is The Specialist. On today's episode, the spark that led Nicolas Chow to rediscover the Qianlong Yulan seal. The carved soapstone seal has left its imprint upon some of the greatest works of Imperial China. Nicolas is chairman of Sotheby's Asia and head of Asian art worldwide. He has been the mastermind behind many record-breaking sales, and under his leadership, Sotheby's has consistently remained at the forefront of the Chinese works of art market. Let's join Nicolas now with more.
Today we'll be talking about what to me is the greatest discovery I've ever made in Chinese art in my 25 years at Sotheby's, and it is the discovery of the most important imperial seal in the collection of Emperor Qianlong, which had been lost to history and just reappeared out of nowhere over 10 years ago. It is a square seal of relatively large size, carved out of the finest white soapstone with a mythical beast and her young. And it is in the style of the early Qing period, so probably early 18th century from the reign of the Kangxi Emperor or early in the reign of the Yongjing Emperor. The carving of the animals is spectacular. It's possibly the finest of its kind I've ever seen, and the base is carved with a 6-character mark, Qianlong Yulan, which means appreciated by His Majesty the Qianlong Emperor. And this is a seal that would have been impressed on his favorite paintings, and paintings of a certain size, because it is the largest of its kind. The Qianlong Emperor must have been the most powerful man living on earth in the 18th century. He ruled over a vast kingdom, millions of subjects. The richness of his collection really surpasses that of any other ruler at the time. For him to impress all these great paintings passed down for the last 1,000 years, it's a way of legitimizing his rule and his legacy, to actually leave a mark on the history of art of China. Qianlong was very keen on his seals, so he had quite a number carved for himself, but those that he would use to impress his own paintings in his collections, there's only a small number. This is the one that he would oppose on only the most precious paintings, and therefore it's a seal that connects in a way all the finest paintings in the history of China. For anyone who's interested in Chinese paintings, I think the first painting that comes to mind is Fan Kuan's Travelers Among Mountains and Streams. That's a painting that is now today in the Palace Museum Taipei. Iconic, monumental, a landscape painting. You find the seal at the top, just impressed in the center. You also find it on Guoxi Early Spring, which is also a Song Dynasty work, much treasured. It's a seal that was carved early in the reign of the Qianlong Emperor, just when he took over the throne in 1735, or just after 1736, and you find it impressed all the way throughout his reign, throughout 60 years on the throne. If you look at the patina on the base, the amount of wear, you can see how many paintings it's been impressed on. Totally extraordinary. After the emperor's death in 1799, his most precious belongings, and those considered most personal, would have been transferred to the Shouhuangdian, the palace of imperial ancestors on Jinshan, which is Gold Mountain, right behind the Forbidden City. And that is where these objects were being locked up, preserved, where ancestral rituals would have taken place, where emperors that came after him would have come and prayed. In 1900, during the Second China Expedition, the French forces were based on this mountain. And so it is recounted in Pierre Loti's book, who was a French Marine, great writer, great traveler. And he talks about, in 1901, how they open the gates of this temple and they found these seals and these paintings. And this is how they made their way back to Europe. It must have been hidden in France for a while. We found out later, while doing our research, that it had resurfaced in 1965 in Sotheby's, London, where it was purchased by Wu Quan, this great collector. And he spent the second part of his life assembling what is one of the greatest collections of Chinese art ever assembled. It was in the early 2010s that my colleague Angela McAteer, who'd known this family for a very long time, suggested that we go and visit them together. And so we arrived in Guernsey. The collection was housed in a mansion outside of the town. The family greeted us and took us around the collection. And I was looking forward to seeing this extraordinarily reticulated vase, Qianlong period. I look around the room and I see this seal, soapstone seal. The light's not great, it's on the bottom shelf, so I kneel down and I look at it closely. And in the dim light, I can see, though, that the carving is exceptional. It's about the finest seal I've ever seen, and based on the style of the carving, I can tell it is Kangxi or early Yongzheng, made for the court. I said to the collector, would you mind taking this seal out? And he said, everyone's looked at it. This is a fake. And I said, I've spent many years, I'm passionate about imperial seals. It's an area that I absolutely love. I take it in my hand, I look at the carving, I can see the smooth stone, the exceptional workmanship. And I know this is early 18th century, and I turn it over, and I see the seal face. And I see those characters, and I had only ever seen the ghost of this seal impressed on all these great paintings, published and some that we'd handled. This is the object suddenly in my hand right there that has touched, kissed all these extraordinary works, all the depth of China's history expressed on that seal face. My assumption is that most of the experts and scholars who saw the seal before me just assumed it couldn't possibly be right. It's just too good to be true. This is the most important seal face, the one that you will find on all these great works of art. And of course, during the Republican period, just after the fall of the Qing dynasty, when they were making lots and lots of copies of imperial paintings, they also made copies of these very famous seals to impress on those fake paintings. So it is possibly the most faked seal in the history of China. So I think people just made the assumption it was just not possible that such a thing existed outside the palace. I told the family, this is by far the most important piece you have in your collection. And he said, are you sure? I said, I'm absolutely sure. This is an area that I like to think I know best. It is the most valuable. The collection was kept in the family for another 10 years before we offered it for sale. The greatest expert in the field of imperial seals is Guo Fuxiang from the Palace Museum, Beijing. This is someone who's handled the greatest numbers of seals because, of course, most of the seals are stored in the Palace Museum, Beijing. When I called him and said we have this seal in our possession, and he traveled to Hong Kong to handle it, I've never seen him this excited. I've worked with him for 25 years. He couldn't believe at long last that what is possibly the most used imperial seal of Emperor Qianlong, and by definition, therefore, the most widely used imperial seal in the history of China, was right there in front of him. So it was finally in 2022 that the piece came to market. Beyond just the sale of this seal, the whole Wu Quan collection that we offered has been one of the great highlights of my career. I feel a lot of gratitude towards the family to have entrusted us with objects like the seal. It's a great privilege. And what a joy to present an object of such historical importance to our public and to let people handle it and feel the weight of history in the palm of their hand. We decided to give it a sort of standalone stage. We didn't want to mix it with the rest of the collection because most of the rest of the collection were porcelains, lacquers, objects that are exceptionally beautiful and rare, but are still decorative for the most part. And this is an object that stands on its own, an object of supreme importance in Chinese history. So the bidding was fierce. We started the bidding around 50 million Hong Kong dollars, about 5 million pounds. The seal was eventually sold for 150 million Hong Kong, around 15 million pounds. And it was the greatest collector of Chinese paintings today who acquired it. And actually, most of the people who fought over this seal eventually, when the bidding opened, were collectors of Chinese paintings. People who own paintings impressed with this very seal. The idea of being able to put these things back, to have a painting and have the seal that was impressed, that touched it back in, let's say, in the 1730s, 40s, 50s, it's almost like a magic trick. It's incredible. There's a real challenge to the imagination to look at these two objects again for the first time today after over 200 years. It's extraordinary. I think with the rediscovery of this seal, you have one of the little mysteries of Chinese art resolved at long last. The disappearance of an object that until that time was only known through the sort of impressions it left on all these paintings. It was very moving for me to be able to bring it back to light.
Thank you for joining us on The Specialist. This has been brought to you by Sotheby's Financial Services. SFS offers asset-based loans to unlock the value of your fine art, automobiles, and other luxury collectibles. To step further into the world of Sotheby's, visit any one of our galleries, which are open to the public. Go to sotheby's.com to find out more.